Good evening. This is TV8 News Night Report. I'm Martin Morenz. Tonight, the Portland School Committee heard from concerned parents fighting to save some alternative education and language programs. Over 100 parents and teachers attended the hearing, and as TV8's Jonathan Hall reports, the parents gave some convincing arguments.
If you are able. Every kid deserves a chance to go to that program. Thank you.
One by one, they came to the podium, their message loud and clear. Keep the alternative elementary education program at the Hall School alive, even expanded if possible.
I realize that developing a school committee budget is a long and very difficult process. To many of us, this isn't a pilot program. This is really the future of elementary education in the city. And I ask you, please don't endanger that future.
Vote in support of having a first grade and 2 second grades, a third and a fourth grade, so that we can keep this pulse alive. I see a really wonderful spark in the eyes of my 6-year-old. I want to keep that spark alive.
I myself believe that learning through experience is one of the best ways of learning and retaining that knowledge. That seems to be very much emphasized by this program, doing something concrete.
The alternative education program puts independent kids from all walks of life into a more relaxed and creative atmosphere, where they are encouraged to explore subjects they are most interested in. Kids, parents, teachers, and school administrators all like the idea, but there is a problem: money. If the program expands, a new teacher would probably have to be hired.
It's a citywide draw for this program. That being the case, the chances are there would be a cost element to put additional staffing here.
The superintendent's proposed budget could phase out the program by not allowing first graders to enroll next year. A popular third grade French program is also in danger of being cut.
So Portland right now, in starting this program, is off on the right foot. They are in the forefront of this movement nationwide, and I would hate to see it be squashed before it even got off the ground floor.
The school committee decides on a budget this week, then it will be sent to the Portland City Council for review. Jonathan Hall, TV8 News, Portland.
2 men were fatally shot this past weekend here in Maine. In Portland, 20-year-old David Moyers, who lived in this apartment house on Danforth Street, died of a single gunshot wound to the head. The shooting occurred in the apartment of Frank Fornier of Maple Street. No one has been charged with the shooting, although Fornier was arrested for possession of a firearm by a felon. He is free on bail today. Meanwhile, Micheal Baird of Clinton has been accused of killing Colby Shorey following an argument over a woman. The 38-year-old Baird was arrested at his brother's home, the scene of the shooting. It has been more than 2 years since Bernard Goetz gained notoriety as New York's so-called subway vigilante. Now his trial is about to begin, and Goetz believes public opinion is on his side. Here's ABC's Ron DuPaulis.
It has been more than 2 years since that fateful day, December 22nd, 1984, when 4 teenagers were shot on a New York City subway train during an apparent robbery attempt. The youths claimed they were just panhandling to get some money to play video games. The gunman fled the subway car, leaving behind a bloody scene that touched off a national debate on vigilante justice. After more than a week on the run, Bernard Goetz, a self-employed electronics engineer, surrendered to police in New Hampshire. The first grand jury to hear the evidence in the case refused to indict Goetz on anything more serious than an illegal weapons charge. Since Goetz is white and the 4 youths black, that created an outcry among other blacks who saw the shootings as unjustified and racist. A second grand jury indicted Goetz for attempted murder after learning he had shot one youth a second time as he lay wounded, reportedly saying, "You don't look too bad, here's another." The second indictment was thrown out last year, but reinstated on appeal by the district attorney's office. 3 of the 4 youths shot by Goetz have since been arrested on unrelated criminal charges and are doing time. The 4th youth, Darrell Caby, shot in the spine by Goetz, remains paralyzed from the waist down. Through it all, Goetz has remained defiant and unrepentant. Citing a previous mugging in which he was beaten, Goetz says he would do it all again if he had to. Ron DePaulis, ABC News, New York.
The Clamshell Alliance anti-nuclear group plans to mark the first anniversary of the Chernobyl nuclear plant accident with a week of demonstrations. The group plans a major demonstration outside the Seabrook nuclear power plant on May 2nd. It also plans protests in Boston and Concord, possibly at Governor John Sununu's office. Sununu is an outspoken Seabrook supporter. The Massachusetts State Legislature today looked into medical questions being asked about an apparent high cancer rate around the Pilgrim nuclear power plant in Plymouth. Here's WCVB-TV's Pam Cross with more.
The main question before the Legislative Committee, why do 5 southeastern Massachusetts towns, Plymouth, Duxbury, Kingston, Marshfield, and Scituate, have higher than normal cancer rates? And is the Pilgrim nuclear plant in Plymouth the reason?
That's the point that we can't make a statement on at this point in time. We just don't have the data which relates it one way or another to Pilgrim.
Low-level leaks from Pilgrim are only one theory. Others include lifestyle, like smoking and eating habits, on-the-job exposure in the victim's workplace, or just coincidence if the victim had the disease before moving to the area. Public health specialists who were repeatedly criticized said it will take more time and money to conduct a broad-based study of both cancer victims and healthy residents.
I want to have answers as to whether there is any increased cancer risk to my living where I live.
Boston Edison, on the defensive, says its monitoring data show Pilgrim is not to blame.
When these studies are completed, you'll find that there was no causal link between the operation of the station and the health of the people in the local communities that can be traced to the operation of Pilgrim.
It will be more than a year before there are any real answers. During that time, public health administrators and Boston Edison will be subject to criticism, and residents in the Plymouth area will be left to worry about their health. At the State House, I'm Pam Cross, News Center 5.
The California Air National Guard says the son of entertainer Dean Martin was the pilot of an F-4C fighter jet that crashed over California Saturday. Rescue teams are looking through snowdrifts up to 8 feet deep in California mountains for any sign of bodies. Dean Martin, Jr. was one of 2 men on the jet when it disappeared in a training flight over rugged terrain. Efforts to find the missing jet continue. The Air Force says problems with key flight equipment in the B-1 bomber have forced it to limit flight training maneuvers in the plane. Officials say the restrictions were imposed last month after technicians found problems with the plane's radar systems. The restrictions center on a system designed to let the bomber automatically hug the ground and evade enemy radar regardless of terrain. A woman who represents the mothers of political prisoners and death squad victims in El Salvador was in Maine today to speak about her country's plight. America Sosa is with a group called Comadres. Sosa, who now lives in Washington, D.C., says her 14-year-old son was arrested and interrogated, and her husband, a construction worker, died from injuries he received under torture.
In helicopters and American airplanes.
Las bombas también son norteamericanas.
These bombs are also American.
Pero los que mueren son salvadoreños.
But the dead ones are Salvadorians. Are you waiting for a regional settlement in Central America? Or are you waiting for a second Vietnam in Central America?
Lo que significa que
Sosa is touring New England this month to talk about human rights violations in El Salvador. She says her group now includes 800 mothers. Coming up next on TV8 News Night Report, something that tastes great and is brewed right here in Maine. And some multi-million-dollar headaches lie ahead for a Portland bridge. Stay with us. An avalanche has swept down a Canadian mountain, killing 7 members of a ski party that had been brought to the remote area of British Columbia by helicopter. A guide and 4 other skiers managed to outrace the avalanche. The bodies of the other 7 were discovered following a search this afternoon. The plan to replace Portland's $1 million bridge is a multi-million-dollar proposition. Here's more on the plan from TV8's Lisa Gardner.
The people of the 2 cities have been waiting for an answer to that question for over 15 years. And today, the Greater Portland Chamber of Commerce gave its endorsement of a plan to build a new mid-level bridge.
We cannot afford to wait any longer to reach a solution on this issue. We have got to work together to see that efforts to replace the bridge go forward now without delay.
She says the bridge is rated one of the most dangerous in the country. Because the bridge was built low, it must be raised several times a day to allow vessels through. The Chamber of Commerce is concerned about emergency vehicles being delayed and accidents caused by traffic congestion.
I think that the bridge is poorly engineered. I think that the road is difficult to travel. I think that this area is growing and that it will continue to grow, and that there will be more and more traffic back and forth on the bridge.
Even getting from my street off on Anfon Street to go to the mall, you got to go way out around Scarborough, or you never make it. That's the trouble when that bridge is up. Sometimes you don't know. It might be up for a month. You follow me?
Now, what about the traffic underneath the bridge?
The captain of this ship said his heart almost stopped beating yesterday as he passed through the $1 million bridge because the span was right over his head.
I also spoke with a captain of Portland Towing Company who says the ships he brings in will be glad to see a wider bridge. And this means good news for the people of Portland.
It means a reduction in the price of delivery of fuel. You get, if you're paying $1 a barrel to have it delivered on a 35,000-ton tanker, you'll get the delivery in a 54,000-ton tanker, probably 75 cents a barrel.
Well, I'm not very happy about it. I've been here 21 years, and to lose my livelihood, it's just not very good for me.
Roberts Mobile Station is one of 2 companies that may be displaced by the new bridge, but the Chamber of Commerce says no homes will be lost. The Department of Transportation will hold a hearing to discuss the new bridge plans with anyone concerned tomorrow night at 7 at Portland City Hall. Lisa Gardner, TV8 News, South Portland.
Geary's Pale Ale is Maine's first locally brewed beer this century. As TV8's Marguerite Jordan-Blair reports, now the owners want to expand their markets.
Beer making. It's a combination of skill and patience and luck. For the last 6 months, the Geary company has been brewing its pale ale and selling it at local taverns. Now the company is stepping out, bottling its product to sell in local stores. Marketing may hold some of the same challenges as making the beer, but proprietor David Geary says there are lots of reasons to believe the beer will do well.
Every now and then people want a little bit more, a little more flavor, a little more character, a little more body, something that's a little different, and that's what we provide. And I think this is a very strong market for that sort of product.
With some initial problems ironed out, Geary's first 500 cases are making their way to store shelves. So what are the factors that make new products sink or swim? Advertising executive John Holt says the first is positioning, that is, finding its niche. He agrees with Geary that in Portland, getting people to try new things is easy. Portlanders are also loyal. They like products made in Maine, and in this case, Geary's taste reputation will precede it. But while the first sale is easy, the second is the toughest. Holt says the biggest mistake a company can make is to see a demand and then fail to have the supply to meet it. Marguerite Jordan-Blair, TV8 News, Portland.
Coming up next on TV8 News Night Report, Cliff's up next after a sunny day here in Maine with his forecast, so stay with us. Well, Cliff, I can take a few more days like this, that's for sure. Nice sun out there.
That I can do. It looks like at least 2 more days of better weather. If you're talking about better, that means milder temperatures. A lot more sunshine coming, and really nothing in the way of a great midweek at all.
Good.
Let's take a look at those numbers currently in town, Portland. Very happy to report clear conditions. 34 degrees are high this afternoon. Climbed up to 42. Last night's low 38. The barometer falling slightly at 30.05 inches of mercury. Relative humidity at 82% with northwesterly winds. Very calm right now at 2 knots. In Lewiston, Auburn, clear 31 degrees. Clear atop Mount Washington. A visibility of 75 miles. The temperature is 27. Northeasterly winds at 41 knots. A lot of wild water rushing out there. Springtime, sunrise tomorrow morning at 5:38. Setting at 5:58. Day's length, 12 hours and 20 minutes. Checking in with the tides in Portland Harbor. Have a high tide around the corner at 5:51 in the morning. 6:48 tomorrow afternoon. Our low tides at 12:29. Been some travel weather places I know that you've been expecting to see up here on the board. Baltimore tomorrow, sunshine 65 degrees. Cleveland, sunshine and 67 degrees. Elsewhere, Honolulu, sunshine and 87. And in Pueblo, Colorado, looks like another windy day and a cool daytime high temperature of 48 degrees. Color satellite sequence has been following a huge storm system, a weather mechanism that's bringing on blizzard warnings in Kansas and even a 30-degree temperature difference from the western areas out in Nebraska compared to the eastern sections where they saw some scattered rain showers and daytime temperatures into the 60s. Gale warnings out in the California coastline area and even some real windy conditions all the way from the Gulf Coast region up into Minnesota. They picked up some trace amounts of snow. from Milwaukee throughout Minnesota and back up into the southern sections of South Dakota. As we put the maps into motion, we continue to see fair skies over the eastern half of the nation. Some spiraling bands of clouds around a low-pressure system continue to push out into the central Atlantic, and some real heavy thunderstorms right now just to the east of Louisiana. Those clouds towering up to about 34,000 feet. On a regional scale right now, clear skies, New York State back into Pennsylvania, temperatures dropping back down into the upper 30s and some places into the lower 40s. It looks like a very, very nice day throughout the southern and mid-Atlantic coastline region. As we take a look at the regional map, the temperatures have started to fall. For the most part, it's uniform. Temperatures from 36 degrees at Bangor to 31 degrees at Augusta, 32 at Concord, 35 at Manchester. Light variable winds. There have been some places with north-northeasterly winds at around 3 to 5 knots. Down to the west, look at this. Hartford, Connecticut, 47 degrees. 44 degrees at New York City and 46 degrees with clear skies everywhere. Place right now reporting clear skies out there. A look at the California coastline. Looks like a pretty good forecast for the next couple of days out there with another front moving in at the end of the week. So high pressure will remain supreme over the northeast. Our winds will be light and variable. They'll continue to rotate around this high. As we put the maps into motion, we're going to start to get into a south-southwesterly airflow. So that's going to drive our daytime temperatures up into the upper 50s and lower 60s. Low temperatures tonight. Watch out for some slick road conditions across the northeast. All that water that's melting will refreeze on the roadways, and the high temperatures tomorrow. Look at this stuff. At least to the 60s, some places into the 70s in Ohio. The offshore forecast from Eastport to the Merrimack River and 25 miles offshore. High pressure variable winds at 10 knots or less tonight. Variable at 5 to 15 tomorrow. Our visibility 3 to 5 miles. Average seas 2 to 4 feet tonight and 1 to 3 feet on Tuesday. Here's my forecast. Vibrant starshine. Temperatures near 32 with light winds for tonight. For tomorrow, sunny and steamy, 48 to 65. A light sea breeze for Tuesday night, clear 30s. Forecast for Wednesday, still sunny, 55 to 65. Extended forecast for Thursday, a mixture of sun and clouds, a chance of rain by Friday, temperatures still in the 60s. Isn't it incredible stuff? 60s. I like to even say that word. It's fun.
A lot of snow melt here. Still great spring skiing in the mountains.
It certainly is, Mike.
Okay, Cliff, thanks. And coming up next on TV8 Newsnight Report, Craig brings us Maine baseball highlights, so stay with us. UMO baseball in sunny Florida, huh?
Kind of a tough night, though. Maine and Miami have developed one of the great baseball rivalries in the country. Tonight, the Bears and the Hurricanes one more time in Miami. Maine gets on the board first. Cleanup hitter Dan Etzweiler chases home Gary LaPierre, who had singled and moved to second. The Etzweiler double makes it 1-0 Bears. Miami wastes no time in getting even off Jeff Plimpton with a man at third, Will Vesper. Pops one to left center, and that falls for 2 bases. 1-1 the score. The Hurricanes then ease in front as Frank Dominguez works on a fastball and takes Plimpton to the fence in left center. 2 bases and a 2-1 Miami lead. In the third, Miami stretches it out. George Robles leads the inning with a triple to the alley in right center. The speedy Robles perches at third. He later tallies on a sac fly, and Miami makes it 4-1 on a wild pitch. Catcher Colin Ryan can't find it, and Jose Trujillo, who had walked, scores from second. 4-1 Miami. Miami breaks it wide open in the fifth. The big blow, a fister to center by Doug DeCock off Mike LeBlanc. 2 more runs cross. It's 9-1 Hurricanes. Maine gets on the board again in the ninth on a 3-run homer by Dan Etzweiler. Good night, Mr. Spalding. But that's it. The final, Miami 10 and Maine 4. The Auburn Lewiston Sports Hall of Fame is now 4 years old. Today, the announcement of the newest members. 4 new inductees were named today. Not present at the press conference in Lewiston, retired Colonel Gail Liberty, an expert pistol shot who went to Edward Little High School. Joining Gail in the hall is Walt Slavensky, the brilliant track coach at Bates and a proud alumnus of Syracuse. Larry Gowell, an Edward Little and New York Yankee pitching great. And one of my favorite people, John Libby, a local sports voice who called the play of the Boston Bruins during the late 1950s. And all of the inductees with fond memories of their careers.
Well, I would say the highlights was the first visit to Madison Square Garden, followed by the first visit to the Forum in Montreal doing Bruins games.
Well, the awareness of this day that they're having in honor of a few of us here in town is certainly going to be right up there with some of my highlights. I think in terms of the great teams I've had in the past, the great individuals, Rudy Smith, the present group of John Fitzgerald and Mark Hatch. There's always something good happening in this field of coaching.
Well, I have to say the highlight of my career probably would be in the Yankee Stadium when I was brought up at the end of the year in '72. I had a chance to pitch the last game of the year there in the stadium, and of course it's an awesome place when you first walk into the place.
And special achievement awards this year go to 3 track stars, Lisa Clemente of Lewiston and the University of Maine, and Mark Hatch and John Fitzgerald of the Walter Slavinsky program at Bates. All of them deeply honored.
My father was a native Mainer, and he was honored the Bangor Sports Hall of Fame, and so it's sort of a family tradition, I guess you could say.
I'm really flattered. It's not often that track is recognized, and it's an honor. I'm really happy.
I'm really quite honored to be distinguished here today with all these fine Maine athletes. I've had a lot of experience competing within Maine and outside of Maine, and since high school even. And it's really nice to be recognized with such fine athletes here.
And a special award goes to the 1947 Lewiston football team, one of the great teams in the history of the state of Maine. On the board tonight, in the National Hockey League, the Oilers 7, the Devils 6. In the NBA, the Sonics beat New York 126-121. Dallas got Philly by 3, while the Pacers beat the Bullets by 9. And that's a look at sports this
Great
night.
to see some of those athletes finally honored.
You bet it is.
Okay, thanks. And finally, Maine Education Commissioner Eve Byther indicated today that she shares the same priorities as legislators, but they're still waiting for specifics. In the annual State of the Education message, Byther called for eliminating drugs, making students better writers, and raising the aspirations of young people. Many lawmakers are still waiting for the McKernan administration to say what they will pay for and how. Byther said the governor will soon release 2 reports on how the state and local government should share the cost of governmental services. This has been TV8 Newsnight Report. I'm Martin Morenz. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes another day of scheduled telecasting at WMTW Television. WMTW-TV telecasts on Channel 8 with a power of 105,000 watts video and 21,000 watts audio as authorized by the Federal Communications Commission. WMTW-TV is an affiliate of ABC, the American Broadcasting Company, and is owned and operated by Harron Communications Corporation. Our studios, sales, and administrative offices are located at 99 Danville Corner Road in Auburn, Maine, with general sales offices at 119 Middle Street in Portland, Maine. Our transmitter is at the top of Mount Washington in New Hampshire.